Hello, everyone. Let me give me 1 second while I get. Okay, we'll start in 1 second. Hi, everyone. Let me speaker. Pin. Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome. Sorry, I'm a little discombobulated. This is technically my vacation, and my daughter's not in school, so it's gonna be fun. So. Welcome to today's Let's Talk, Find Work That Fulfills You with Bobby Bakshi. Before we start, in the chat, we want to get to know you. So please let us introduce yourself, your name, what city you're coming from. If you're in the live Zoom audience as well, do the same because we're growing our community, right? Feel free to add your LinkedIn profile to connect with others in the community. I'm laughing because my daughter is to the left of me. You can't see it, but she's copying all of my moves. We want you in this conversation, whether you're on LinkedIn, watching on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter live stream. Introduce yourselves. Tell us what city you're coming from in the comments. And feel free during the conversation to ask questions in the comments as well. And I will try to check them out during the call. So once again, today's Let's Talk is on Find Work That Fulfills You with Bobby Bakshi. For those who are new to Community of Seven, there is only one singular purpose of these Let's Talk calls, and it's to create an environment where you can come as you authentically are, where you're accepted, and where you can have conversations with other purpose-led leaders to talk about the things that matter most to you. So, please turn on the video for those who are live in the Zoom audience because we want to see your beautiful faces. We want you in the conversation. We also want you active and in the chats and in the comments. So if something resonates with you, give us an amen, a hallelujah. If you have advice or books to share, let us know in the comments as well. This is a conversation and a dialogue. And for those who are on the live stream, we want you part of the conversation as well. So comment and introduce yourselves in the chats. So before we begin, I have a few questions. We always start our calls with a check-in. Normally I do it in gallery mode so we can see each other, but the questions today are going to be a little bit personal, so you're just going to see me. But if the answer is yes, raise both hands like this. And you can put your hands down if the answer is no. For those who are watching it via live stream, you could just type in yes, no in the comments. Okay. So first question, are you at a crossroads in your life trying to align your work with your life purpose?
Hi, Caitlin, how are you?
How many of you can clearly identify your life purpose in one sentence?
I can't remember. But anyway, congratulations.
Hold on, wait 1 second. Okay. How many feel you have clarity around your unique gifts? How many feel you do work that aligns with your purpose? Does your work have meaning and benefit for humanity beyond selling just a product? Do you have freedom to bring your whole self to work and be fully who you are? Do you do work that you have pride in and aspire you to grow? Awesome. And I'm loving that I'm seeing a lot of yes in the comments. So today's discussion is on finding work that fulfills you with Bobby Bakshi. 1/3 of our life is spent working. And for some of us, it's even more, right? I think for me, probably earlier in my career, it was probably 50% of my time was at work, or 60% of my time was actually in work. So if we're spending that much time in our lives working, shouldn't we do work that matters to us? In this Let's Talk, we're going to really talk about the science of purpose and how you as an individual, but also how companies and organizations can leverage the power of intrinsic motivation and purpose to supercharge their teams. And for you to help you find your purpose and your meaning, your ikigai, right? According to a Gallup poll, only 31% of employees in the US say they are engaged at work. And I think a lot of that has to tie in with the fact that people want to find meaning in the work that they're doing. on a personal note, it took me 4 decades of constantly asking, why was I put on this earth? What is my purpose? But it took me 4 decades, and I can finally say that I have found work that fulfills me. And along that journey, I came close many times to finding a job that had purpose. But I realized that it wasn't just about finding work that I liked doing and that I was good at. The work had to be aligned with my personal core values. And for me, that was my family, my friends, my freedom, being of service to others, and my faith. So all my previous roles always fell short. So maybe I would find a job that I really enjoyed doing and that I was good at, but it didn't pay well. Or it paid well, but I was coming home at 10 o'clock at night and not seeing my daughter, my husband. So in my journey, I really had to kind of figure out that my purpose had to also align with what was important to me and what I went home to. And it reminds me of this time I was on this, between jobs, I would take these long breaks, kind of like I'm doing now. I've taken the last 2 months to kind of soul search for this past year. And I would just kind of ask myself, well, why was I put on this earth? And I remember someone gave me this advice, and it was, some people are lucky and they find their purpose and passion in work, at an early age. And some people have a job and they come home to their passion. And for the longest time, I thought that was me, that I worked jobs and I would come home to my passion. And it wasn't until, this past 2 years that I realized that I could do both. And of course, I had to start my own company in order to kind of realize all of those different things. But I don't think it's necessary that you can sometimes find your purpose and passion in a 9 to 5, right? So I'm so excited to have Bobby here today to discuss what, how to find work that fulfills us, or how companies can make work in a work environment where their employees feel like they're fulfilled. Bobby believes that when people are clear about their purpose, and I 100% agree with him, you can better connect with your teams and the company organization you work for. I always kind of use it when I coach my core teams that it's, life is like a GPS. If you don't have an address, that GPS is useless. So you need to be crystal clear in your goals and your purpose and your wants, because the closer you are to understanding them and identifying them, the easier it will be to get to your destination. So before I introduce our guest for today, in the chat, or those who are watching in the live stream, I want you to answer in the comments. Please answer the following question, but don't press send till I tell you. Do you have a clear vision of your life purpose? If the answer is yes, what is it? So I'm going to type my answer right now and answer that. And if your answer is no, you don't know what your life purpose is, I want you to write no, but what brings you joy? What brings you happiness? Spending time with your family, having fun, being out in nature. So if you know your life purpose, type it in. Don't press send yet. And I'm going to share with you mine. And I'm going to count down. My life purpose is to help others find their purpose. And I figured that out probably 2 years ago. So count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, press send. Helping people, creating content to help others, helping others develop themselves, create equity in our country. This is amazing. This is really great, guys. Creating deep connections, helping children, role models, mentor, to help people find and live their bliss. No, but being creative helps me bring joy. That's awesome. And I think that's the power. You guys, it's okay to not know what your purpose is, but you should always know what brings you joy and happiness. And I will give you some advice. If you don't know what your purpose and your reason for being is, focus on what you love and what you're passionate about, because it generally will take you towards your purpose. Because the more you do things that you are love doing, your energy changes, and it will bring people into your lives that align with that. So it's okay. I mean, I didn't figure it out till I was 40 something, right? Some people don't figure it out. Will introduced me to the amazing Diane Gilman, who became a multimillionaire, a gene queen at age 67 or 60 something, right? And so sometimes we don't know what our passion and purpose is till later in life, and that's okay, right? So I am so excited to introduce you to Bobby Bakshi. He's a global citizen who has grown up and worked in several countries. Bobby has taken this experience and knowledge to bridge the gap between cultures, and make a difference in his leadership work. He spent the first part of his career in market research and insights, and over a decade in leadership development. He has spent a decade working at Microsoft, followed by leadership roles at 2 unicorn startups. He melds his unique discipline of leadership development, people and culture, and DE&I. Bobby is dedicated to helping leaders and teams thrive at work by clarifying how they define success and crafting a path to get there. He focuses on leveraging intrinsic motivation with his diversity, equity, and inclusion work and his purpose-driven leadership work. He believes that the science has proven that the ROI of intrinsic motivation is a key to increasing productivity, innovation, and results. Drum roll, please. Please welcome Bobby Bakshi. Hi, Bobby.
Thanks, Lan. It's such an honor. My gosh, you have such a beautiful community. I'm so honored to be here with you all. And thank you for the gift that you give, through your living your purpose. This is you're doing it right now on vacation. And here you are doing it. I love it. I love it. Thank you.
I love it. Well, I love having you here, and I'm so excited to hear about this talk because I know it took me a long time to try to really figure out what my purpose was, and it's a journey. So if you want to just kind of take it away and kind of introduce yourselves. I know I kind of gave a brief overview, but if you can do a deeper dive in terms of your work and how the folks on this call can really find their purpose, that would be awesome.
Yeah, thanks, Len. Actually, as we're speaking, a song comes to mind, Sting, I think, right? I still haven't found what I'm looking for. I don't know if anyone relates to that, right? But that's been sort of the journey for me, and you opened us up so beautifully. I totally share that with you. I was also 40 plus, and it's only really recently that I feel like I'm fully living my gifts. But here's the essence of this. If there's one thing I think Lan and I want you all to take away today, is we're all unique and have this amazing gift inside of us. And then we end up, throughout life, from literally childhood, putting on schlack, right? All these things that just cover up that gold, that gift. So hopefully what you'll get out of today is ways to really think about how to unpack that. Shed those things that you've taken on as things that aren't really yours, that keep you from believing that you can be the best that you can be. So I am going to break. I checked with Lan before. I know these are usually just casual conversations and no slides and stuff, but just to frame us up for about 10 minutes, I'm going to share a few slides. I might pause along the way, and Lan and I will chat about it, open it up for questions. Lan, let me know. Can you all see the screen okay? Okay, cool. So let's see. Yeah, firstly, please put in chat if you've heard about Joseph Campbell and this famous, quote, "Follow your bliss," right? So Joseph Campbell, for those who don't know who he was a professor and really an academic who studied mythology. So he looked at patterns across numerous religions and cultures. And this was it. This was the summary of his work, of his 3 decades of work, is follow your bliss. So you may say, that, gosh, yeah, that's easy, but I've got to pay the bills. And, how do I make really life happen? Well, here's the big disconnect I think we're facing, and the great resignation and COVID has really brought to a surface. I love this quote from Oprah. The only time that Oprah stood up in front of her audience as a monologue was her last episode. And I'm going to read this out because it's so powerful for me, and I hope it is for you. She says, I've talked to nearly 30,000 people on this show, and all 30,000 had one thing in common. They all wanted validation. Do you hear me? Do you see me? Does what I say mean anything to you? So to me, that's the essence of what I believe we're all seeking, is connecting that with purpose and how we bring ourselves to every part of our life. And yeah, Lan, you touched on this piece around how we've lived in sort of like this work-life balance thing. I don't believe in that concept. I mean, we're moving too fast these days. The lines are so blurred, and with the pandemic and remote work and hybrid work, it's up to us. It's all the choice on how we do that. But it's, at the end of the day, it is about belonging. So yes, thank you. Lan shared a number already for the US. This is the global number from Gallup. 21% of employees are engaged at work. So really only 1 out of 5, 4 out of 5 are not. And then further, if you haven't seen this article, I highly encourage you to look it up. From McKinsey last year, they did a paper called The Great Attrition or Great Attraction, Your Choice, right, to companies. And so what they said is people who recently quit, 1/3 of them did not have another offer, right? But guess what? People who are likely to quit almost jumped by twice that much, right? 64% would leave without a job in hand because they're so miserable. And so, that's where, when Lan and I were discussing the topic, I think the real connecting piece to purpose is really intrinsic motivation. Big shout out to Daniel Pink, if you haven't heard of him. He was actually the speechwriter for Al Gore in the White House, and then wrote this seminal book called Drive, where he took 30 years of research from all over the world, academic and otherwise, and said, look, it's actually really simple. Extrinsic motivation, yes, people need to get paid well and get benefits, but take that off the table. Don't make that a distractor. If you're an employer and you're paying people under market, they're going to leave. Yes, they're going to leave because of money. Once you get that taken care of, he said, the magic happens with these 3 things: purpose, autonomy, and mastery. And purpose, I think we'll talk a lot more about, but let me talk about autonomy and mastery a moment. Because they get a little confused. Many people think autonomy is like, don't micromanage me, dear manager, right? Yes, it's that, but it's more about waking up and going, I know exactly why I'm going to this job. I know exactly what my role is and what contribution I want to make and how it serves me. That's true autonomy in terms of how he's defining it. And then mastery is the art. Right, people like Seth Godin, really, amazing marketer and consultant around that topic. And the essence of what he says is we're all artists. And so when you pick an area that you specialize in and become masterful at it, that brings value and really, makes you stand out. Next, so how many of us, again, put it in chat. Have you grown up with this thing on the left? Do the hard work, have the money, then be happy, right? That's usually how we're sold. At least my parents brought me up that way. Nothing wrong with that. Yes, we have to do hard work. But what if we approach things from the be, do, have? Like, I'm being happy, I'm doing what I love, and then I have, the life I want, right? Just flip it. Really turn the tables on this concept and try it out and see what you think. So yeah, even Lan brought this up. So here's the thing about the give and the get, right? So I have my purpose. First, of course, the job is to get clear about it. I think actually that right there can get really tough. And in a moment, I'll turn the slides down. I'd love to have the conversation about that with Lan and others if you'd like to engage. But once you have discovered that, then if you're going to work for someone, your job really is to assess whether there's alignment with the team and with the company's purpose. I'm going to give you a quick example. I won't name names or industries actually, because you might look up my LinkedIn and point exactly at the place I'm talking about. But I said yes to a job where at the lunch interview with the hiring manager, I asked a question about the industry. I didn't feel aligned. I didn't feel like it's an industry that I can be in integrity with. Nothing unethical, by the way, about the industry. I've never worked for any place that's not ethical. That's not what I'm talking about. But there was just some big disconnect for me with the product type and who I am. And at the same time, the person who was interviewing me, she and I really connected on the actual job, which was absolutely in my sweet spot. I loved what she wanted me to do. And so I said yes. And in hindsight, big mistake, because I didn't trust my gut. I knew that there's a big disconnect in how really my integrity around to myself, right? Just to be clear, integrity is a very personal thing. It's how, what my compass is. It's different than like accountability is with someone else, but each of us have our own different definition of how we define integrity. So that's just an example of that. One more slide and then I'll stop. So I was talking about Joseph Campbell. I believe where we get really stuck with this journey of career and finding that meaningful livelihood and meaningful work and purpose is, again, Joseph Campbell's hero's journey. By the way, if you've seen Star Wars or if you're a fan of Harry Potter or any of those classic movies, they all follow this formula. George Lucas consulted Joseph Campbell in the construction of the Star Wars trilogy. So a brief walkthrough of this, right? So in the beginning, life is great. You're with your parents, everything's good, you know, and then there's a call to adventure. Something happens and you're called to an adventure. You find a mentor, you cross the threshold into something really unknown. And it was really scary. It's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm going into my own business. Never done it before. My parents always told me, need a secure job and benefits. How am I going to do this? And then you go through this. You get helpers, and I'll share some examples of that in just a bit. You have this feeling almost like, you know, you're dying or something in you is dying. And then there's a rebirth. And then there's this revelation around, oh my gosh, I've been sitting on it all this time. Here it is. You know, this is me. This is what I bring. And then, you know, the gifts and then the return and a new. And then many times the cycle continues. But I think for a lot of us, life's too short. So I think if you find this cycle once, we're pretty good. So yeah, I promised to stop here. So let me stop. I know I threw a lot at a lot of you and everybody. Lan, what do you think?
Yeah.
Are you tracking with me so far?
No, totally. All of this really resonates. And you know, I was thinking when you had the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, or someone had posted it. I remember just seeing it. It made me think about how things change in the cycle of your life. So I grew up with not a lot of means. And so when I graduated college and was looking for my first job, my only criteria, my only purpose was to make money, right? And so specifically to make enough money so I could support my mother, because my mother was always kind of financially, you know, she was a hairdresser that made $10,000, $15,000 a year, right? So I wanted to basically provide a life for her. Once I met that, probably like in my late 20s or so, money no longer became relevant, right? And so I think it changes, and that now that I'm kind of I have a family, and it's later in my life, and I have this little one who's likes to be involved in these calls. That a lot of it has to do with my purpose has to be aligned with my family and my sense of purpose of going home. So it's changed kind of throughout my career based on my life circumstances, if that makes sense. And so I think that's what's kind of interesting, because if you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the very top is enlightenment. But you can't get into enlightenment unless you have security, you have a roof over your head, you have all of these processes. So it's kind of interesting, because I know I talk a lot about purpose and career, you know, in my talks and my posts. And I always get the, I would say the jaded answers from people who are just like, oh, well, it's you know, nice to talk about purpose and passion, but you know, you're going to get fired, or they're living from a fear mentality. I guess that's a thing. And so I think whenever you are in this fear mentality is because you don't have the safety and the security. So you
Love it.
can't get to the enlightenment unless you deal with that. It's complicated, I guess, to
No,
kind of.
you're spot on. Yeah, thank you. If I could jump in, I'm totally with you. And, you know, we're going to get right to fear in just a moment. We'll talk about that. But first, you know, I think this, you're absolutely right about the career journey, you know, and life stage. And where you are on that continuum of socioeconomic and privilege, absolutely. But I'll give you an example. So in my own experience, my wife and I, we have 3 teenage kids. And we decided very early on, we adopted them, and that she's going to focus, she chose to focus fully on the kids. She has a bigger purpose than I do, honestly. I mean, where I think a lot of people fall is like, you've got to be a MLK or a Gandhi or, you know, do these big world changing things. No. What you're doing right there with your daughter, you know, and you have your business and everything you've done. That's it. That's purpose right there. It doesn't have to get very complicated. That I think a lot of us get caught up in that. And then the other side of it is, so I'll talk about my 18-year-old who's just finishing high school this year, and she's working. And what I've said to her, and we're very different. I'm Indian origin, so you know, we're very focused on academics, but my wife and I are not. It's like, you know, if it draws to you, if you want to go pursue it, go for it. But we're not, you know, going to be that doom and gloom about, oh no college degree, what's going to happen? There are many options these days, right? So it's scary. It's not that it's not scary, but to just be laser focused on like an Ivy League degree or even just a college degree is kind of pointless, because we know, I mean, come on, there's suicide rates from some of those schools that just are astonishing. So what I want to connect this to is really the life criticality of purpose and intrinsic motivation. Yes, there's people who say to you, Lan, that, hey, you know, you got to meet those basic needs. Yeah, absolutely. We need we need shelter, we need food, we need our basic needs met. But so many of us have lived in that industrial age way of thinking. Go to the 9 to 5 and more, get paid, pay the bills, and then maybe I'll have a vacation or something. And what's happened with the Great Resignation right now with the pandemic is like people got a flavor of something else and they're not going back. You know, those are real numbers. It wasn't just a passing trend. People got a flavor for this and are like really waking up to, so why do I do this? And what's the true meaning of this? So I think all of that really connects. So if I could, because you went to fear, let me just share a few more slides here, because we're going to go right into that. So next, you know, what I say is, so what comes in the way? That's really what you just opened up, Lan. It's beautiful. So I'm going to tell a quick story. This is one of my favorite stories. So in the savannah in Africa, it's said that the lion, who is, you know, the lion or lioness, are the king and queen of the jungle, of the savannah. But they're not fast. The fastest animal in the savannah is the gazelle, which is right under you. If you can see the little picture of the gazelle. So here's what happens. The lions create a strategy. The old lions can still roar and scare you, but the young lions can run fast enough to give a chase to the gazelle. So the old lions hide behind bushes and the young lions chase them towards the bushes. When they get to the old lions, the lions jump up and roar. Now, if you're a gazelle, you're seeking that meaning and purpose and work, right? What are you going to do to save your life and go through that fear? Lan, actually, yeah, let's do it the way Lan did it. Don't hit send yet. Please answer which direction you would go in. Let me give you some choices. You could go backwards, you could go sideways, or you could go straight ahead. Please type in chat, and yeah, let me stop this a moment. I want to see what's happening in chat when we do it. So here we go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hit send. Straight ahead, Lan. That's it. Will, yes. Yes, Katie. Sideways, Preeti, that's okay. Yeah. Nicole, straight. Exactly, everyone. It's about going through the fear, right? So it's like, you know, when something scares me, I jump up and I want to run away. And if I run backwards, I'm going to get eaten by the young lions. If I go sideways, they'll probably still catch me. So it's going through the old lions.
Well, and the funny thing with fear is that the more you do it, the less afraid you become. So sometimes the fear is just a mental construct, and the actual doing isn't that nothing to be that you should be afraid of, right?
That's it. That's exactly where we're going. So just a little more visuals. So many of you may have heard this already, but that's what Lan and I are saying, right? Fear is actually false evidence appearing real. It's until I stop believing in that I can have the courage to really go through it, and then it's behind me. So one more quick concept. Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. Many of you may know that great book. Something that people don't talk about too much. He said, look, any way to achieve anything is first you have to conceive it, right? Like we're going to have a person on the moon. Conceive the idea, then believe that it's possible to get to the moon, and then you go and achieve it, right? So where do we fall? That fear comes up with this belief piece. I don't think I can be a millionaire. I don't think I can have my own business. I don't think I can do this. It's hard, it's difficult, etc. All of that talk is called Jung's term shadow, those things that we hide, suppress, and deny. Because I'll tell you, I'm very guilty of it. I probably spend years saying, oh no, I really need that big corporate job and big paycheck, and there's no way I could do this. And here I am. I'm so booked that, you know, it's really hard for me to keep up. And you know, I know.
It reminds me of that famous quote too. If you think you can, you're right. If you think you can't, you're right.
That's it. That's exactly it. So just a few things more and then we'll stop. So then the benefits of this journey, right? When you get that clarity of your purpose, and Lan just said it about the fear comes down because you have more confidence in yourself. And then you're committed to being fully who you are, not what some company wants you to be, not what some job exactly wants you to be. And then you ripple it out, right? That once you have that awareness and that energy that you carry out into the world, that's it. The sky's the limit. And, you know, so that journey, this is a beautiful quote. Yeah, a journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. So, you know, I think that's really what we're saying, right? I think, Lan, yeah, we're so aligned on that. And what I would just say as we, I think, open it up to more conversation, please hear, and what I think both Lan and I are saying is, be gentle with yourself about that fear, right? I mean, it's real when it's happening. It's paralyzing. So many mental health issues are based on those things.
So Tanya has a great quote in the comments. Fear feels so big on the near side and surprisingly so small on the far side, right? I always kind of use the analogy of when you first learn to ride a bike, it's so terrifying getting on there. But I haven't rode a bike in 10 years, but if I were to get one yesterday, there would be no fear, right? And the muscle memory would come in. And I think of public speaking. I had a fear of public speaking for so long. Now I do it for a living. So I think it's one of those things where the more you do things, it just becomes part of who you are, right? And that fear is all here. It's that mental mindset. So you, Bobby, you kind of briefly mentioned, you know, you had a great career at Microsoft and had these really senior positions, and then you pivoted to start your own company. What's the biggest lesson you learned in your career journey? You know, because that is, I know for me, it was a little bit scary, kind of just like leaving these high paying jobs and title and just to the unknown. So what can you kind of tell the folks who are in this audience about your career journey and what can they learn from it?
Yeah, thanks. Before I really answer that in a little more detail, I want to say it's not for everyone. You know, don't feel bad if you're not ready, your circumstances don't allow you to, etc. It's okay. It's okay, you know, and if you can, there's so many stories of people who've done well with doing that. I believe it brings great joy. So two things, actually, I want to share my story of that same thing, really about public speaking, and then I'll share a bit about career. So I was in college in India. I've grown up all over, like Lance said, but I was in my undergrad in India at the time. And I tried out debate team. And I got up there and I froze. My first debate, and I just went blank. I didn't know what to say, and I was so humiliated and so embarrassed. And then later in the cafeteria, I'm with my best friend who did really well. He was right there. In fact, I don't know if we were in opposing teams, but he did really well. And the professor's like really raving on him. And I don't know if she did it directly, but I felt really cut. I really felt like, I felt that little. Fast forward, you know, I've spoken to thousands of people. You know, I get up there and I just do my thing, and you know, and I still remember before I go on stage, I remember that moment. It's, you know, many, many, many years ago. But what a gift. The reason I'm sharing that story with you is the way I leapt past the lines with that was that I didn't let it be my story. I stopped believing that that's what's going to define who I am. And that's what helped me take the next step. So to get a bit more specific to Lance's question, I think the most pivotal moment was at Microsoft. And as she mentioned, I had a career in market research. And first, the more gentle version was somebody invited me to a role that was really project management with vendors in India. And I paused at first. It was like, really? Because I was doing really well in what I was doing. I was subject matter expert in segmentation across all the business units. And like, and about 5 years of that, do I want to give that up? It's like, this is really nice. And my ego is really big. You know, it's like people come to me and see me as an expert. And why do I want to give that up? Something in me said yes, right? I mean, the manager who was selling me on the role said yes. But what I didn't realize was I said yes to something he asked for, but it really led to what I really wanted. The job was simply make sure this project goes smoothly, that about 100, you know, full-time employees in headquarters in Redmond, Washington, connect well and collaborate well with 3 strategic partnerships in India. So yeah, I can do that. That's easy. I've done that before. But what happened very quickly was within 3 months, I realized we'd be on phone calls and we would treat the vendors in India like we do anybody. We talk fast. We have high expectations. We expect that when they say yes to a deadline, they're going to meet it. We expect that they know our high standards, and then they would fall. And so I went to literally my CMO, Chief Marketing Officer, and said, you know, there's a disconnect here. And this is about culture and this is about people. Can you give me carte blanche to go do this? And I went in with her with a plan, which is basically an HR plan. It was a leadership development, people and culture plan with 5 different components, my becoming a coach and having offsites in India and taking teams out there often. And this is back in the days before Zoom. So, you know, dedicating rooms in the office for video conferencing, getting the vendors to insist that they do it. And all of a sudden it became like a groundswell. You know, on the one hand, resistance from traditional people at Microsoft saying, wait a minute, why are we investing in vendors? We pay them. Why should we invest in this effort that Bobby's doing? And then the numbers showed, right? We had definitely met all the business things that we needed to accomplish, but we also started to accomplish amazing partnerships and relationships with those people. And that was the beginning of my L&D and HR career. So let me pause there, Lan. Does that make sense? And how, you know,
Totally.
like all of a sudden it just goes from like, what?
It reminds me of the quote, as you know, I love quotes. As everyone who follows Community of 7 knows I love quotes. Jump and the net will appear. And I think that ties a lot for the folks who are kind of listening today. I think the themes of jump and the net will appear also takes you being able to bet on yourself and believe in yourself. Because sometimes the fear of the unknown and uncertainty will prevent you from trying something new. Sometimes we're forced, like I was forced, because when I was laid off at Fortune, I was forced to try something new, right? But it turned out to be the best thing because I'm talking to all of you guys right now. I have Bobby here. It's like it's opened so many doors. I'm writing a book, right? I didn't. It took a layoff for me to be force myself out of corporate, right? But I also had to believe in myself. So you believe in your capabilities that yes, there's uncertainty, yes, there's fear, but I believe in my self-worth enough. I believe in my resiliency. I believe that I will figure it out, and that things will work out. So I love that, Bobby, kind of talking about, for the folks who are on this call, I'm hearing a lot of people kind of figuring out what to do next. And a lot of people are quite frankly feeling stuck. How do you get people to get unstuck?
Yeah. Well, these two things I think so far, right? Like getting very real about your fear instead of just, because the loudest noise in my existence is my head, right? So listening to that mind chatter and journaling, you know, there's science. I mean, people like Adam Grant, the professor, I think from, is he Wharton, talks about there's literally science around journaling. Just put your thoughts down on paper, because, and private, right? Don't have to share them. You don't have to get vulnerable with others, but be real, use the language that you need to, if it's, you know, whatever words that are flowing through you, get it out. But then here's the other piece, and Lan, I'm so glad you said faith. I'm also big in faith, but spirituality. So this is the even better is like if I journal on one page with dumping all my garbage in my head, on the other, I imagine like a child and play as if God's writing it, right? What's God gonna say? Like, come on. You know, my belief in faith and in my higher power is only wants the best for me, like a parent does, right? Can you write to yourself like that? And can you start believing that more than you believe the story of all the garbage that I just dumped out, you know, on the other page? That exercise is, I use it in coaching, I use it with people. It is one of the most simple and powerful techniques.
And you know, it's so funny. Sometimes it's so much easier for us to give these advice to other people, but to actually internalize it for ourselves is a different story. And I think that was a big difference for me. I've always been someone who has been a mentor or coach or like, you know, helping people find their purpose, but I wouldn't take those, like, I would self doubt myself. I would not have boundaries with other people. And I started to actually live my advice probably in the past 2 years, and that's when things change. You know,
Yeah.
giving kindness to yourself as much as you give to the other people. Things that just seem like common sense, right? For folks who are empathetic, or for people who are more kind of the givers in the world, it's not second nature. If you're a taker, that's one thing. That's you're born innately knowing how to do that. But for most of the folks who are, I think, are in Community of Seven, we are a community of givers, empathetic folks who are like leaders that focus on purpose. It's more so we always focus on other people. And the thing is, if you can't do it for yourself, you can never 100% effectively give to other people. And it was only this past 2 years where I've been able to really harness my energy because I started taking care of my health, my well-being, and I was able to now become a better parent, a better friend, you know, a better coach, or whatever it may be, right? And that's an organic thing of looking internally and kind of like, you know, actually living what you preach. I think that's the hard part for a lot of people. So I know we are both very passionate, being kind of BIPOC, people of color ourselves. I'm always into focusing on folks who are disenfranchised, the disability community, and all this other stuff. Um, you know, what are the implications as BIPOC for those who are kind of others in the workforce and finding their purpose? I know it's kind of unique. How do you approach that?
Well, thank you so much. I'm getting goosebumps. I'm so glad you went there. Let me go here. I think with all the talk about BIPOC and diversity, equity, inclusion, the one topic that doesn't get talked about much is internalized repression. Let me just give a brief description of what that means for everyone if you haven't heard that before. It's like when I start to so believe that I have to fit in, that, I don't even realize that I'm being someone else, right? So me in corporate rooms with white male leaders and feeling like, yeah, I get along. They invite me. I'm at the table, so I'm good. No, I'm not. Actually, no, I'm not, right? Even though I'm male, and yes, I have that privilege. And yes, I have, by the way, the privilege of being Indian, which gets really attached to doctors, engineers, CEOs of large companies. I'm not that. And I don't really want to be, actually. So I get that shadow, gold shadow, which is a positive shadow of that, oh yeah, you must be smart and, and all that. Yeah, I'm smart, but in different ways. I don't have that Harvard degree and all of that stuff. So internalized repression, and the reason I'm giving you all those examples, those are all examples of internalized repression. I grew up believing that I need an Ivy League degree. I grew up believing that I need to be a CEO of a large corporation, right? That's what my culture and environment taught me. So when I can get real first to realize that I've been facing internalized depression, which is done upon myself, and just that awareness, again, journaling and things like that. Yes, you could go to a therapist, but really, I think journaling is a very easier way to do it. Then I can say, oh yeah, yes, I have that. Now, so what, now what? That's one of my favorite quotes, Lan. So what, now what? When I stay in the valley and I'm like licking my wounds about something that hasn't gone well, that's the moment to just jump out of bed and go, wait a minute, there are other options here. Right? So with internalized depression, what I found is, because I'll tell you the flip. I mean, literally, I'm going to give you a specific example. Tomorrow, I'm going to a nonprofit that I do want to speak to everyone about, called the Mankind Project. And it's a nonprofit to help men step into their maturity, a new way of defining masculinity. And what I'm so excited about this weekend is it's historic because there are like 70, 80,000 men around the world that have done this over 40 years, but this is the first ever in the world where Pan-Asian and Middle Eastern men are coming together. So both the staff, because there's like 40 men who are volunteer staff and about 20 men coming to participate. We're all primarily of Asian and Middle Eastern background. It's in an environment like that that I feel safe to do what I just said, right? Which is, here's my internalized oppression, here's how I'm working with it, here's still room for improvement, and giving people that I trust permission to call me out when I'm falling in that trap, right? Like the classic one, I mean, and this, I'll stop with this in a moment. It's happened to me literally from people who are now friends would say, hey, Bobby, what's that? Like, actually, they don't ask it as a question. They don't ask it with curiosity. They'll say, that's kind of like calling Bangalore and getting a help desk person who says Bobby when his name is really, Subramaniam, right? And my jaw drops. It's like, really? Are you kidding me? But then when we have the conversation, it's like I can see people falling into that trap. But in the past, I would have turned the other way. Now I don't. It's, as much as it's not my job to call it out, it is. And so I will kind of, take that moment to say, actually, there's a story behind my name. Do you want to hear about it? Yeah. So in expression on BIPOC, yeah.
So we actually have a follow-up question from the audience. Preeti, do you want to unmute and ask your question so we can see your lovely face?
Yeah, thanks.
Sure, I've got a gardener here, so it's a little loud, but I wanted to know what resources are good for internalized oppression, because I don't know if I had this, but what I did was I covered my whole career and I didn't know I was covering because I wanted to fit in so badly. So I was basically not me and not doing a good job fitting in. I was in this weird middle place that was not good. But when you still become you, that doesn't help you feel like you belong or fit in, because you still feel like you don't belong every day. So what resources are there to work through this internalized oppression? Because for me, a lot of this happened, like, I guess subconsciously, like I didn't even know any of this stuff was happening. And then I definitely never even talked to anybody that all these, because the gaslighting, the manipulation, all this stuff happens. And when you see it, now I see it, but that doesn't make it easier to navigate through.
Thank you, Preeti. Thank you so much for your vulnerability to share that. And I hear you completely. Unfortunately, I don't have a simple answer for a resource, but what I'll do at the end, because I want to really be present for you all, I'll put my email up, reach out to me, and I'll give you, I do have a definition of it, which actually, if you have a moment, I'll send it to everybody, that I really feel even just thinking about that definition for yourself and where you are with it. And again, writing about it, talking about it is the starting place. It's not an easy topic. It's not like most EE&I topics that you can go do some assessment, or definitely not a training only. It's very complicated.
I feel like you're in the right spot though, Preeti, in terms of intentionality, because I think most people don't pause to think about that. And I think part of that is being in the present moment and being aware of things. I think I spent so much of my early kind of career maybe being insensitive because, I wasn't pausing to think, well, how am I portraying myself? How are other people portraying? How do I feel when that person, calls me by the wrong name every time they see me and I've worked here for 5 years, right? And what am I doing about it? And if I'm not saying anything, why am I not saying things? I mean, I think part of that is just, it's a journey. I mean, I think all of our journey on this call, whether you're BIPOC or you're a white male, cis male, is being the journey of really being authentically who you are, comfortable in your own skin. That took me a long time because, like I said, like the internalized oppression, you don't realize that you are hiding who you are. And I didn't really realize it till later in my kind of career. And so when I started being proud of who I am, that's when I started to feel comfortable in every room I walked into, and it's like I always tell people, I'm a Vietnamese refugee and I'm an introvert. Every conversation I kind of have, because this is who I am, right? And I'm not going to change it. Whereas before I used to pretend to be social, pretended to be this. I have to be authentically, and I think everyone who's on this call, you have to authentically be who you are. And I focus, I think we talk a lot about systemic racism, and I'm like, let's stop talking about, let's talk about systemic equality. How do we create like equality in the rooms? And I'm like, I'm gonna stop waiting for someone to invite me to the table, and I'm gonna create my own damn table. And I'm going to invite all of my friends and all of the folks, and I'm going to make it diverse. And I think at some point, you got to stop waiting for validation. And I think when you are waiting for validation, that's when, all of the social angst, the kind of like, well, am I in the right place? That those feelings kind of take place. But I think when you kind of move it towards yourself, then it becomes a lot easier. Lataya, sorry. I can definitely relate to being consistently called the wrong name, and I just did that to you. Sorry. It's one of those things, right? When you have like a name that is kind of unique or whatnot, that you're always constantly going to be. And I think this is the thing is, I want you to unmute yourself and please pronounce your name because I just butchered it.
No, you said it perfectly. Lataya.
I did.
You did.
It sounded
Yes.
right, man. Yeah.
And I have to say, it's a beautiful name. I
Thank
love
you.
it. But this is kind of a, admit when you're not sure if you spelled someone's, pronounced it correctly. And as a person, I used to be like, people would call me Lon, and I'd be like, okay, sounds kind of similar. Now I'm like, no, it's Lan. It's one of those things where you also have to take that onus. Does anyone else on the call? I think we have room for maybe one, maybe two questions if there's time. Anyone, if you want, you can just kind of unmute yourself and ask the question. Anyone?
I actually have a question, Lan and Bobby. I'm currently at a company where I started a few months ago, and some things changed after I started at the company. And I'm just curious in making sure that a particular space and position aligns with who you are, how to properly vet that company, and maybe some strategies or processes to look to. Because, you know, when you're in that vetting process and they want to get you on, they're going to tell you what you want to hear, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, how can I make sure that this place is going to be aligned with who I am as an individual and what my personal goals are within my personal life?
Yeah, Natalia, I got it right? Okay. Let me take a stab at then over to Lan. Just be true to yourself and trust your gut. Ask those questions. You're interviewing them more than they're interviewing you. And I don't know if the environment, I mean, I'm sure it is different by industry, but this moment we're living in with the Great Resignation and a lot of demand for, people hiring, be particular, don't settle. Yes, you need to pay your bills. And if that's it, go ahead and say yes, but also know that you compromised and keep looking. I'm going to be honest with you, like, don't settle.
I think also from a practical standpoint, what's helped with me is you have to do your own digging. So actually, because the hiring manager is going to give you one POV or the people you're interviewing with. So I actually go in LinkedIn. There's a way you can go into LinkedIn and see who you're connected with at that company. You would reach out to them and just say, hey, I'm applying for a job. Can you give me a behind the scenes view on this? I would also look at Glassdoor and some of these other things to kind of really dig into culture, because I've worked in organizations that preached one thing, but it was a toxic culture. They talked about equality and equity and all this other stuff, but behind the doors, it was not the exact opposite. And I wouldn't have found that out from the marketing materials or talking to the leadership. And, you have to talk to the people who are actually on the ground. So even if it's someone who's more junior, honestly, EAs know everything. Executive assistants, like I have always, like every company I've been to, I have go straight to the EAs because they know everything. They know all the dirt and they will be honest with you.
Actually, Lan, I want to jump in. I'm so glad you brought that up in the last minute or two. So I'm literally with a client right now doing a culture health index. And the EA of the full board reached out and said, my perception on the culture here is so tainted by reporting to the board. So I have sympathy for them. So I don't know if I can represent, because she'll have to check the box that says she's an individual contributor employee. I said, go with your gut, but your ears and your understanding of the culture from people is so valuable. Share that. Share your truth. It's confidential and anonymous. So that's great suggestions.
Yeah, but get to know people from the top down, all around. I mean, I think that's how you're going to get it. And go on LinkedIn, look at your connections, and it'll tell you who you're connected to in that company, and reach out to them and just say, hey, and you'll be surprised. People are like more than happy to kind of give you like their personal advice on things, but you have to do your own digging in terms of culture, because you're not going to get that from a marketing brochure or here's our mission and philosophy. That's bullshit, because I know so many companies who have a mission and then the way they operate is completely different. And talking about the individual contributor, Anne has a great comment. It always bothered me that there's an assumption that to be a leader, you have to manage people. And she leads all the time. So true. I mean, some of the best leaders I've met in my career are individual contributors, because it's just because you have a title doesn't mean you're a good leader, right? And leading is really the ability to motivate people, to get people to believe in themselves. And so thank you, Anne, for that. That's really powerful. So it's 3:00. Guys, Bobby, how can we support you? I put some links to your website on here. BobbyBakshi.com, My Purpose DIY. You can find yourself on LinkedIn at Bobby B. How else can we help you, the folks who are on this call?
Thank you. No, just reach out. Listen, I'm so appreciative. This community is so rich with the giving, as you said, Lance. So anything I can do to support you all, just reach out and I'll gladly help. I just ask for grace if it takes me a little time to get back to you. But other than that, yeah, please, anything I can do to help.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And everyone put yourself in gallery mode. You know what to do. Turn on your videos, turn on your, unmute yourself because Bobby deserves a round of applause. Woohoo! Thank you, Bobby. Come on, unmute yourself. I know there's more of you.
Thank you.
Round of applause. Thank you, guys. I mean, seriously, for the folks who are on this call, don't give up on your purpose. Don't give up. Just the whole thing is being intentional and you will slowly get there. A journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. That first step is you believing in yourself and you just basically taking one crawl if you have to, but keep on moving towards that. Okay? Thanks all. Take care,
Thank
guys.
you, everyone.